friends, last week we forgot to check in with you on the previous week for how Firefly was living in your life. So this week we'll start with an open question on Painted Turtle and Firefly. Anything you want to talk about your relationship with either of those of our guides?
What was the word? Firefly?
Firefly we talked about 2 weeks ago, and Painted Turtle.
Are you talking about the internet system? Firefly?
No, we're talking about what we've been working with in this forum series.
Yeah. We weren't here, so just,
So if you remember, Firefly was about finding our own light when we're in dark times. And last week, when we worked with Painted Turtle, we talked about Dark Night of the Soul and surrender.
There's a real problem with fireflies right now. They're dying off due to sprays in various plants, and they're actually very worried about losing the population. And I know this is true in the Northeast, I don't know about here. But I know in the Northeast, we used to always see lots of fireflies in the summer, and children would run after them and catch them, but the idea of not having that light
they're probably dying off
flying
in the
around,
south
it's
too.
very sad. Sorry?
They're probably dying off in the south for the same reason.
Yeah.
The south is very big on spraying.
Yeah.
Well, and then they need green grass. And so a lot of the grass isn't very green anymore.
Well, I'll connect, since I wasn't here for fireflies, but the inner light. I think it's always possible, at least has been for me, to find a little bit of light, even in the dark night of the soul. And so I think I try to find where my joy is, to be my inner light. My family, we were always big on family, and so it's been a hard 20 months for me, but our daughter, for instance, just had a little baby girl. And so I try to find joy where I can. That lights up my soul.
Thank you, Cynthia.
She has a beautiful name.
Let's hear.
Maybe you guys haven't heard of it before. It's Esther.
I do love that name.
And our daughter, her husband wouldn't tell us what the name was until she was born.
And
What
I
about
have
surrender moments? What about Dark Night of the Soul moments? Anybody had any traction with that this week? This past week?
Well, I sure did with Palestinians is just my dark night of the soul. It's hard to talk about it.
Hard to talk about it, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I started to talk about fireflies and then I kind of dropped it, but I think what I'm praying for now is that our nephew, who has, his drug addiction has gotten worse and worse and worse to the point where they just don't think he's going to make it. I'm just praying that that little light shines for him, because clearly he's in that dark night of the soul and can't escape. And my sister and her husband are beside themselves. This was the child that was born after their daughter had died of spinal meningitis. So this was such an important child to them. But he has had a drug issue for many years, but has just really sunk into the dark night of the soul.
Thank you, Terry. You can all hold that prayer with you for that night.
Oh, let's see. Do we just,
Yep, go ahead.
I didn't know if I have to, I just unmuted. I didn't know if I needed to raise a hand or what.
Go
But
ahead, you're on, okay.
a friend shared with me something that our pastor back in Michigan had shared with them. He found it by accident. It was called a Wounded Healer's Prayer newsletter. And this guy is Paul Dazet, Dazet. He considers himself a wounded healer because he has some physical issues. And that's what I'm beginning to feel in certain areas of my life. And it's been a dark night of the soul for me, in various ways, trying to find answers. And if I can't find answers, accepting what is. So that's been my challenge for this Advent. And I have found his three prayers for those waiting in the dark phenomenal. And I'd be glad to send them to anybody if you're interested in receiving those.
Yeah, just send them to me and I'll post them somehow.
So, Lori, how do I set? Where are you? What's your ad? It's
The church office email.
the church office. Okay, we'll do. We'll do. Thank you.
Thanks, Marilyn.
I think it can be kind of a conflicting time. I think people have, people who struggle with mental illness or whatever, and then you go into these dark days and the days keep getting shorter, and yet we sort of get shoved all of these expectations on the holidays and whatever, and I think then the distance between what you're feeling and what you're being shoved, what's being shoved at you can make it worse. I know a lot of people who are suffering right now and struggling. So I did hear a really good thing that helped me, that happiness doesn't have to be binary, it doesn't have to be on or off, that you can try, they said try for happierness. And that I can do. That would be just a little bit better maybe, or a little bit glimmer of something in my day can help.
That's neat, yeah. Thanks.
So, but may I say, add one more thing? Felicia was able to listen to most of your homily or sermon this morning. And oh my gosh, you certainly introduced a new Joseph to me. I always thought he was kind of a patsy and kind of a milquetoast. Well, he got, he is what it is. But wow, that whole genealogy of messiness and that's where God is born in the messiness, and that Joseph obviously struggled with it from that other extra canonical book that you referenced. And I thought, wow, I hadn't heard that. That gave me hope to know that I could identify with Joseph. So thank you for that homily.
You're welcome. Thanks, Marilyn.
Okay, let's jump in. Our last guide for this series is Black Bear. We chose to talk about her, and you'll see it is a her black bear we're talking about today. Today is the winter solstice. Today is the shortest day of the year. We just had solstice actually at 8:06 or something this morning. We're going to talk about deep rest there and anything else that arises as you listen. So in Gail Boss's book, she begins her meditation on Black Bear with this Mary Oliver piece. But nothing you ever understand will be sweeter or more binding than this deepest affinity between your eyes and the world. So I invite you, if you're able and willing, to close your eyes or to have a soft focus and just listen as we learn about what the Black Bear is going through at this time. Try to imagine the gifts that she has to teach us today. Walking the northern Michigan hardwoods where I was raised, restless, I make myself stand still. Somewhere in these 800 acres, a black bear is sunk in sleep. A month ago already, beneath some falling tree or stump, she dug a den rounded to the curl of her body. She raked bits of bark and grass over its floor and eased herself in. I crouch, close my eyes, and imagine that ball of furred muscle, lax and loose, somewhere nearby. For weeks before she lay herself down, her whole self had been shifting, making ready for another life. Late in summer, just when most berries and nuts ripen, she grew ravenous. 7, 8 hours a day she camped in wild raspberry, blackberry, gooseberry, and huckleberry patches, pawing and licking fruit into her mouth. Then, to rest, dropping to her belly and breathing in the fallen gems. Cloyed of sweet, she sniffed out savory, jewelweed, swamp thistle, cattail, and saxifrage, snacking on yellow jackets, ants, and beetle larvae along the way, finishing the day in a grove of beech nuts or hazelnuts or hickory nuts, tripling, even quadrupling her usual day's calorie intake. Still, the trustworthy voice inside her urged, eat, eat more. Lush, warm, the late summer days were lost on her. Her gaze was fixed ahead. Her every move, food purposed. Her intention fierce and singular. Until the voice prompted an utter turnaround. Let go, it said. Go limp. The nut trees and berry bushes are skeletons now. Crouched in the snow-muffled quiet, I imagine hearing her slow breathing. I imagine smelling slow burning bare, the fat she made from all those nuts, berries, bugs, and plants, melting and fueling her sleep. She is shrinking, except in the den deep inside her body. There, she is multiplying, balls of cells swelling into new forms of her. Maybe she dreams of the life growing inside her. Did she foresee it all the while she ate and grew, ate and grew? Did she perceive it when she lay down? Whatever hints, or none, she had of its purpose, she absolutely knew a compelling urge. She obeyed that urge, and now, in its own time, while she sleeps, it takes shape. 2 shapes. About 8 weeks from now, while she still sleeps, the cubs will tumble out of her. 10 ounces each, and blind. They'll find her nipples and set straight to nursing. While she sleeps, they'll nurse and grow, their hunger draining her body's stores. In late March, when the air warms, she'll wake slowly. Imagine the moment when, spent and thin, she finds 4 bright eyes looking back at her.
Ten ounces.
10 ounces.
And she sleeps.
She sleeps. I said to Claudia, my deliveries were not like that. Not sleepable through.
Nor were they 10 ounces.
Nor were they 10
No,
ounces.
thank God.
Well, I guess it would be pretty easy for a 10 ounce to get some nourishment from their mom. But then they keep growing.
Yeah.
What grabbed you when you heard that?
What grabbed me was all the things that were available to her to eat, which isn't possible anymore. And we keep planting things down low, and then that brings the bears, when we should be planting berry bushes and everything way up high.
It's a good
Although I
idea.
don't know if they would grow, but
Yeah.
You know, my mind went in a totally different direction as the bear snuggled in, made the den and then relaxed and fell asleep. I thought of two things. Our dog, Puppy, when she's completely asleep and you can lift the paws and they're just limp. And the same with our little granddaughter when she's completely asleep, which is a really sweet thing to think about. And then our daughter who's nursing, who's constantly hungry.
Yeah.
She didn't hibernate, but she's hungry.
But she's hungry because she's, making food. Thank you. Yeah. That kind of deep rest, that is just surrender to rest.
Yep.
Yeah. I was looking at our beloved two little ones in service today as they fell asleep.
Yeah.
Is that same kind
If
of?
we could do that as adults,
Yeah.
I resonated with the body's knowing of what to do. And giving the body what it needs, if it needs food, or if it then switches and needs sleep. I keep going and putting one foot in front of the other and ignore what I might need, but trusting the body's knowing.
I was struck with something similar, just this idea of like having an urge, and how, and just obeying, obeying, the way that Bear does around with the deer. And I was thinking about how many times do I have like a really solid urge to do something that I override.
Yeah, I think you said something similar last week, Raven, that just really resonated with me, that we just keep going. That's our culture. Is now's the time, let's prepare for Christmas and buy gifts and yet the earth is saying,
Yeah.
slow. And our creatures are resting.
And this seems like the darkest early, since I've lived here. It's gotten dark so early and I don't remember it being this way before. I don't know why.
It makes you empathic with Swedish culture, Sweden, Norway, Finland. But they gather. That's what they don't let it bother them. But they have very active social lives during those dark years, dark months. They get together, and very casually, but there's always a crowd of people. They do folk singing and eating, and they really have learned to embrace it. One of the happiest countries in the world. Denmark, I believe it is.
Sweden, I think, maybe. I just read about it, but I don't remember. I thought it was Sweden.
I don't think it was Sweden. It was either Denmark or Finland, because I'm half Swedish and I would have picked up on it if it had been Sweden.
So on the back of your sheets, I've given you two resources, and the first one, I'm sorry, I think chocolate was on my mind. Her last name is actually Hersey, there's no H, but you'll find her under the NAP ministry. So these are two resources that are, I think, very countercultural, and they're not the only two. There's a lot of work coming, especially from women of culture, about exactly what we're talking about going against culture and giving our bodies what they need. And Tricia Hersey is descended from enslaved people, and what she talks about is, for so long my ancestors couldn't rest. First because their bodies were used as machines, and then because out of fear, they never could fully rest. So she went to seminary, and what really rose up in her when she was working on her seminary work was to take naps. And at first she did all the usual things that we do. Well, I can't take a nap. I have the paper to write, I have the presentations to do. And then she realized, no, that is resistance. So she's created this whole movement called Rest is Resistance. She calls herself the Nap Bishop. Um, and it's really powerful work. She'll have people actually come to big seminars where they nap together, and that seems like what a ridiculous thing, but it's powerful. People talk about being able to rest with one another in a space where they feel really held and protected and like Esther, they just flop. So if you're interested in that, I invite you to look at her work. And then that next resource, and she's not the first one to talk about this as resistance. Lori's gonna talk about Sabbath in just a minute, but we've had some really brilliant theologians who have told us that to take a Sabbath is actually absolutely countercultural. Just to take ourselves out of the machine of hustle and buying for a day or whatever it is, a week, that's the way we change ourselves in the world, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. The second resource, Sandra Dalton Smith is an emergency department physician, and so like most people in that role, she experienced burnout just over and over. And she would take time off and sleep, but she never felt rested. She could sleep, but she would wake up and say, I don't feel rejuvenated, I don't feel rested. So she started to do studies, and she has determined that there are actually 7 different kinds of rest that we need. And this was revolutionary for me when I learned it, because I'm not a great sleeper. I can't make myself sleep. So if the only way we can feel rested is to just sleep more, I'm doomed. I can't. But it also helped me because I started then paying attention. When I would just feel like burnout from my job or overwhelmed or tired, I look at these 7 different areas and say, wait a minute, which ones am I depleted in? Then I can feed myself accordingly. So those are physical, which could be that you need sleep, but it also could be you've worked your body really hard and you need just rest. You don't necessarily need sleep. Mental, I think a lot of us know this when we've done so many tasks, maybe at work or otherwise, and you just can't think anymore in that same clear way. And our often our response is, let me just push through it, let me just push through it. Her guidance, and if you go to her website, you'll see little practices for each of these areas where you're deficient. So her guidance is say, stop all mental activity, stop, just take a true rest. Emotional, a lot of us do a lot of emotional labor in our personal and professional lives. Social, this is me, any of us who need a lot of solitude, but are easily pulled into social activities. I'm an incredibly social person who needs solitude. It's really challenging for me to tell myself and others especially, wait, I just can't do this. I can't have this conversation right now. I've had too many interactions today. Sensory. Has anybody here had sensory overload of any kind? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this time of year, it's easy to have the light, all the fun things. Yeah. Creative. Sometimes creative rest is needed when we haven't given ourselves a creative outlet. And spiritual is another place we have rest. So if you're feeling depleted, go to her website. She's got a little free quiz. You can see where you show up on each one of those areas.
I think, for me, the social and sensory would be interconnected. The other way you talked about needing solitude and quiet, I can only handle so many words a day. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that becomes sensory overload for me. And I know for sure I have to engage in creative outlets. If I don't feel like me.
Mm-hmm. That's great awareness, Cynthia. I'm sure it took a little time to come
Guess
to
who
those.
has too many words?
God will do that to us.
Mm-hmm.
God will do that to us in marriage, I've found.
Other people have responses to this information?
Well, my response is silly. but I'd never really put a puzzle together, except as a child, until I retired. And my neighborhood is all into these magnificent puzzles. And so I said, okay, I'll try one. So then I called my daughter and said, for Christmas last year, I want a puzzle board, and it has to be exactly this size so that I can slide it under the cabinet when I'm not working on it. And I got it for Christmas. And the first 2 weeks of December, I was in such overload. My expectations, everyone else's expectations. And I'm like, oh, if I don't get to that puzzle pretty soon, I'm gonna fall apart. So yesterday, everything was done that I needed. No pressure yesterday. Cold day, windy. I get the puzzle out, a new puzzle, 1,000 pieces. And it's postage stamps of the US Christmas.
Oh, wow.
And they're just darling, they're beautiful. And you sort 1,000 pieces. It's just amazing. And my brain just relaxes. And I was even listening to a book on tape because I need to read this book for a book club. And that didn't mess with me either. It was fine. I could listen to the book because it's not a special book. It's kind of a book. So I just got the listen. But the puzzle totally gave me everything I needed. I was a new person, and I worked on it most of the day, much to my dog's chagrin.
Sounds like it provided you some rest.
Oh, it's just wonderful.
Mental rest.
And there's something about the visual spatial that takes care of my creativity without making it a big production. So I don't know, but it's magical for me.
Sounds delightful.
So the Sabbath is kind of the rest time that's been designated for us in scriptures going back to the ancient Hebrew ways of looking at things. But in this culture, our lovely American especially culture, we have completely set that aside, put it away. And so, and maybe some of you can think about back in the day when you were kids and there was an actual day of rest, and when Sunday you'd go out and there'd be no shops that were open, and people would just really, that was it, you wouldn't be able to find anything much to do out there. And so there was more of a tendency to rest. But the way that the scripture looks at this is that rest is the completion of work. That Sabbath is the natural completion of your work. So if you don't have a Sabbath, you haven't finished what you've been doing. You haven't brought it to fruition. And I really love that as a way of thinking about rest and Sabbath. And the Jewish folk have wonderful ways of getting into the Sabbath. And it's a set thing, it's sunset on Friday and through the next day till the following sunset. And they have a ritual that marks the beginning and a ritual that marks the end. And so the whole process is set aside as being holy. And we don't do that, but I think we can do more of it by simply introducing a little more ritual into our notion of Sabbath. First of all, choosing a time that actually is Sabbath, when you just say, okay, this is it, I'm not going to do the usual work. And so what do you do on Sabbath that's not work? Puzzles, maybe, for folks who that's not part of their everyday work. Creativity, again, for folks who don't do that all the time. The rests that Amy was talking about, these 7 different ways of doing rest, all of that can be part of your Sabbath, and you can be intentional about it. And it's important to be intentional about it, because every job we do, everything every task, every creative project, every whatever it is that we do, is only completed when you've rested afterwards. Otherwise, it never gets finished. So,
I like that idea.
So you're categorizing everybody here as somebody that needs rest by being still or doing a puzzle or something like that. There are people who rest by having to talk out thoughts, by having to think through things. You just looked at my wife, so you know what I'm talking about here. That sometimes people need to talk and think through things, and sometimes it's their words that they have to say multiple times to get through it. So not everybody needs a puzzle to go through the quiet part. Some people are talkers, I'm gonna just put it that way. And sometimes that's the way that they work through things that people who do puzzles work through. So we need to be very careful of people that we are around, and we know, each of us knows the difference when one needs one and one needs the other, because not everybody is made the same way.
I'm not suggesting that everyone is, and I think the important thing is to discover for yourself what your Sabbath is, and not to put it on other people at all. But that means, so for the person who needs to talk through things, that might be a Sabbath for her, but it's not a Sabbath for the one who's listening. So there's gotta be a lot of negotiation in that as well. So, the important thing is to really think about it. What is Sabbath for me? What makes sense? And what is Sabbath in the sense of completing my work? That the rest that is its natural completion. And so and that's the important thing, and then once you've done that, then find a little ritual to begin your Sabbath. I brought a little something here just to show you.
I'll just add this. One of the ways Sabbath was explained in a sermon that I've hung on to for a long time is it's not about stopping everything. Rest is doing things that you enjoy, that allows that sense of, it's not work, you can put work aside, but it's that sense of doing something that you really enjoy. And it can be different for everybody.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not necessarily just that, though. For a lot of people, it is really rest. It is the sort of rest that Amy was just talking about, the napping together, or that's one of Roseanne's and my favorite things, is to nap together on Sabbath, So those sorts of things, and again, figuring out what for you.
I think it's about the way we do it too, because, for instance, I really like to do crafts, and that can be so relaxing to me, but there's this part that's in the background that then makes it into a task.
Yep,
right? And then I'm out of that space, right? It makes it into, oh, but I can make this to give to somebody, and I can hustle off my own joy and rest, right? Yeah. So for me, it's been a lifelong journey with that, and it changes all the time, what actually is rest and Sabbath to me. Has anybody done any Sabbath practices, tiny, big? What things have been helpful for you, good for you, not worked?
You had your hand up, Raymond. Did you have an idea or?
Well, long ago, I used to really intentionally be completely silent and empty those days, and that had a fasting and silence, and those that had a really huge benefit at the time, because I was very enmeshed in many other things, and so with that, that pause gave me tremendous gifts from it. And then things change. I think that it's important to recognize that it's different. For me, it's been important to realize like it's different over time. Like what I consider, Sabbath now is, baking cookies for Christmas is, that was a Sabbath. That's a Sabbath activity for me in the sense of just, I'm producing something, as I'm doing that, but that's a kind of rest for me that is much more like I get the same pieces out of that I used to get out of silence and fasting.
So cookies replaced
Yeah.
fasting.
Good job. Rosemary shortbread. Wow, I just enjoyed your Sabbath.
Well, to me, it's like a Sabbath to come here and hear different people's versions of what is needed. And I mean, it means a lot to me.
Thanks, Nancy.
I have a question for you, Amy. So under the 7 types of rest, and it says spiritual, what does that mean to you? What
To me,
or to from her website? Have you?
She has a lot of different ways to approach that. So for some of us, our spirituality, and this is what I fall into, so I'll just speak to that. My spirituality can get hooked in hustle. My easiest way to spiritually deflect is to just read more books. Spirituality.
Okay.
That's my easiest thing, and then I can work myself into overwhelm. So for me, spiritual rest means kind of taking a break from those things.
So I have a so Biola University does a Lent and Advent series. Have you ever looked at it?
I know.
Okay. So I try to do those every morning. And what's beautiful about them is they have art, poetry, scripture, a commentary, and music, all in the same devotion. It is so rich. So to me, that would be part, I'm trying to do that every morning, but that would be spiritual rest to me because it engages, emotional, sensory, creative, and spiritual all in one. That's why I ask.
Yeah, no, that sounds perfect for you, and I think that's, like Lori said, when we find it for ourselves and create it and allow ourselves to do that. I'm gonna speak about you, I hope it's okay. But sometimes when we look for Sabbath, we think, or I used to think, it has to be on a certain day. It has to be Sunday. Well, for some people, Sunday cannot be Sabbath, right? So I know you and Roseanne have really carved out a specific time to do Sabbath together that doesn't have anything to do with the external world.
Right.
And I think that's part of it too.
Yeah. Barb, you are showing your face here. Did you have something to say?
Well, I'm wondering if a definition of Sabbath is something that fills rather than depletes.
I like that. That's a really, really nice way to put it. Yeah. Fulfilling rather than depleting. And in fact, depleting is one of the things that you're answering by having Sabbath. But it's also a completion. Like I said before, that's the part. So anyway, try starting your Sabbath with a little ritual of some sort. And it can be something, whatever it is that you like, that you design. One of the things that sometimes I've done is use sound as kind of an introduction, a wake-up call to me, We're about to do something different. Pay attention. And the other thing, and so lighting a candle, I'm gonna go ahead and light one if I can get my various lighting tools to work. So what this does is just let you know that you've entered a holy space. And it's a space that's a little bit set apart. But it's the space in which you're inviting the Sabbath in. And so that's the first thing is here's our holy invitation space. And then the next thing that I like to do is thank God for the work that I have been given, that has given me pleasure, that I've completed now, and to just really put it out there as something that I appreciate. And thank God for God's presence in that process. And so I've lit my candle. I thank God for God's presence in the process. And then the third thing is to symbolically set it down in some way or another. And so one thing that I've done, I like doing active imagination in that regard, and so I close my eyes and think of a storage space, you know, like maybe it's a shelf, or maybe it's a box, or maybe it's a whole closet. And I just, in my mind, put all the stuff that I've been working on there. So I put it in the closet, or I put it on the shelf, or I put it in the box, and then close the lid or the door and let it be safe there. Because one of the biggest things that happens for me with Sabbath is that I can get into thinking about work. You know, it's like all those things that I haven't yet done that need to be done, like, oh my God, there's 12 bulletins in the next 2 weeks I have to get done, you know, that kind of thing. So to be able to just sort of put it somewhere that I'm not going to access it is an important thing for me. And then to invite God's companioning and rest. And so one thing that's helpful for me, again, to do is to put on something that says, okay, now I'm in Sabbath space. And that's different from workspace. And so here I am, you know. So those are that's sort of the basic process, and inviting God's companionship and rest. So saying a little prayer, and saying to God, thanks for giving me the work that you've given me to do. Now be with me as I rest. And here's kind of what I plan to do in rest, and just be with me as I do that. So any questions or thoughts as you listen to that? Yeah, Kate?
I always remember Richard Rohr's, I think it came from him, way of doing centering prayer and trying to get rid of all the gobbledygook that goes around in your head and the grocery list and this. You take that thought when it comes along and you put it in a boat. And you put the boat in the river and it goes down the river. Boat's gonna be fine, the stuff in it is okay. And something else comes along and you put it in a boat and send it down the river. And those things, you're able to kind of get away and then focus on your centering prayer.
Relax into it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another place that you can put your work, on a boat, send it down the river.
Or you can put yourself on the boat and just toddle along.
Or put your husband on there so he doesn't talk all the time.
I love being on the water, so.
There you go, yeah, it's a good Sabbath activity, isn't it? Boating, floating, swimming.
I think I'm really lucky. I think I inherited a really good sleep. And I didn't do anything special, but I've always been a wonderful sleeper, and I'm grateful. But I always go to bed at night. Well, I have this ritual, and it includes nice hot bath. I know you're not supposed to do that because your skin will dry out, and I'm like, well, it's still there, so whatever. But I have this ritual, and nothing works if I don't do it. So nice hot bath, big snuggy bathrobe, slithering into bed, giving thanks for all the things that happened that day that were wonderful, and then I do try really hard. All the have-to-dos, I tried to put them in a box and put them on a shelf. I don't want to sit them down the river because I want to catch them in the morning, and I might miss the boat. So I just put them on a shelf so that I'll be sure to have them in the morning. But they'll be there. And gosh, yeah, I sleep well, and for many hours. But I'm a chicken, so I go to bed with the chickens, and I get up before the chickens.
Yeah, your own ritual.
Yeah, it's a ritual.
Hers, and
Yeah, and if I try to go to bed without that bath, it's like, maybe.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel quite right.
Do the chickens give you eggs in the morning?
Yeah, they do, yeah.
So they're kind of like the bear in that regard.
Yeah.
There's a rabbi friend who explained to me, he said, Amy, in my culture, every single holy day starts with rest. We start in the evening, it's not the morning. So your very first thing, this very first gift from God is the gift of rest and sleep. And that really helped me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what we do first, and then we can do the other things.
I like that.
Am I the only one that takes things on my mind and I write down notes or a to-do list and then I set it aside before I go to sleep?
No, you're not the only one.
Oh,
I do that
okay,
too.
good to know.
Yeah.
And then I catch
That-
it,
that
then I
helps.
catch it in the morning.
I do that, but then I lose the notes.
That's happened to me too.
Even better.
Even
I know, I
better,
wish
yeah.
I could lose those damn.
Dang, I lost the note.
She's married to someone who doesn't do that. And then I wake up in the morning and go, what was I gonna do?
Was that note or boat?
Any online folks who have a comment or to share? So another question is, how often do you think Sabbath is important? You know, like the tradition is once a week. On the seventh day God rested, and so the seventh day is the Sabbath day. What works for all of you in that regard?
I think there's different types. I need a little bit every day, I need a bigger one every week, and I need a bigger one every year. I think I think I need lots of it.
Sabbaths.
I need a lot of it, but different types.
Yeah, I like that, yeah. I asked the online folks and then I cut you off, so does anybody have a comment? Nope. Alrighty.
Well, we're gonna learn again from our guide today, who was Black Bear. This is how we're gonna close out today's session by hearing again her story, this description of how Black Bear rests, even while creating. So I invite you to sit back, close your eyes if you feel comfortable, or a soft gaze. Walking the northern Michigan hardwoods where I was raised, restless, I make myself stand still. Somewhere in these 800 acres, a black bear is sunk in sleep. A month ago already, beneath some fallen tree or stump, she dug a den rounded to the curl of her body. She raked bits of bark and grass over its floor and eased herself in. I crouch, close my eyes, and imagine that ball of furred muscle lax and loose somewhere nearby. For weeks before she lay herself down, her whole self had been shifting, making ready for another life. Late in summer, just when most berries and nuts ripen, she grew ravenous. 7, 8 hours a day she camped in wild raspberry, blackberry, gooseberry, and huckleberry patches, pawing and licking fruit into her mouth, then to rest, dropping to her belly and breathing in the fallen gems. Cloyed of sweet, she sniffed out savory, jewelweed, swamp thistle, cattail, and saxifrage, snacking on yellow jackets, ants, and beetle larvae, along the way, finishing the day in a grove of beech nuts or hazelnuts or hickory nuts, tripling, even quadrupling her usual day's calorie intake. Still, the trustworthy voice inside her urged, eat, eat more. Lush, warm, the late summer days were lost on her. Her gaze was fixed ahead, her every move food purposed, her intention fierce and singular, until the voice prompted an utter turnaround. Let's go, it said. Go limp. The tree nuts and berry bushes are skeletons now. Crouched in the snow-muffled quiet, I imagine hearing her slow breathing. I imagine smelling slow burning bare, the fat she made from all those nuts, berries, bugs, and plants melting and fueling her sleep. She is shrinking, except in the den deep inside her body. There, she is multiplying, balls of cells swelling into new forms of her. Maybe she dreams of the life growing inside her. Did she foresee it all the while she ate and grew, ate and grew? Did she perceive it when she lay down? Whatever hints, or none, she had of its purpose, she knew absolutely a compelling urge. She obeyed that urge. And now, in its own time, while she sleeps, it takes shape. 2 shapes. About 8 weeks from now, while she still sleeps, the cubs will tumble out of her, 10 ounces each, and blind. They'll find her nipples and set straight to nursing. While she sleeps, they'll nurse and grow, their hunger draining her body's stores. In late March, when the air warms, she'll wake slowly. Imagine the moment when, spent and thin, she finds 4 bright eyes looking back at her.
Amen.
Amen.
Holy God, bless our rest.
I think the Jewish people do a much better job with Sabbath than certainly Christians. Back where we used to live, I remember there were a number of Jewish families. You would see them walking to temple. They did not drive their cars. Their ovens were, there was a Sabbath setting on ovens. I think many people can still buy those. So it really was a day. And when I grew up, our family would gather at my grandfather's. We would all walk there you know, it wasn't too far. And we would have Sunday dinner together. And so, and we spent time just being outdoors or just playing with the other kids. And it was a real time for family to reconnect. And you looked forward to it, not only because you didn't have to cook, and they always had good things, but there were all these other interesting cousins and aunts and uncles who were there and had stories to tell.
Yeah.
So there were no cell phones. I mean, I think we've made life very difficult for ourselves with all the technology, AI, and all those things which were all completely, it's certainly thrown me off and I've hated it. Technology bothers me because I'm not good at it. I do try, but I would like to live in a simpler, gentler time. And I recognize, you know, those families, and in particular, Jewish families, were good. On Sundays, you know, their houses were quiet.
I'm glad you brought up the technology because a lot of people find doing a Sabbath from their phone and computer, like a long Sabbath, to be very rewarding. I know not everyone can do that, but you're right, the cell phone.
And again, I think that's an individual determination, you know, but one that's worth considering. Are you a slave to your technology? If so, then Sabbath that involves no technology is a good idea. Yeah, so just.
Is there a way to unplug?
Say more. Is there a way to
Oh,
unplug?
no, unplug. Yes, I said something to a friend a couple days ago, and she didn't respond for 2 days, and she apologized because she says I was unplugged, and I said there's no need to apologize. I think that's admirable.
Yeah.
How do you fit the Broncos and the Nuggets? And all that?
I'm leaving.
Faith that they can do it without.
Think they can do it without you.
4:59 on Saturday.
So great to see you.
See you next week.
Turn on the closed captions.